I think we lost Mete at the end there. Apologies if any of you are still hearing him. Yeah, I'm hoping that we will be able to share that YouTube. I don't have the definite answer to that, Thomas. I know some of you struggled to get that to play. It was playing. Right, so right in the last bit of the day, one last set of closing remarks, and then I'll round us out. Tony, are you there, and can you come on screen? You are here.
Yes,
amazing, wonderful. Okay, I will leave everyone in your capable hands. This is Tony Juniper, who is Chair of Natural England. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much indeed, Susie. Good afternoon, everybody. What a fantastic conversation this has been today. I've tuned into quite a bit of it in between other bits and pieces that have been going on. One thing that really strikes me about the discussion today is the extent to which we are seeing this pivot in the discussion about nature recovery and conservation in this country, because whereas for decades we've really been talking about the countryside and nature in remote and wild places and protecting all of those, increasingly we are talking quite rightly about nature in urban contexts. And this is a really significant shift, but one which I think is really important to note as perhaps the biggest environmental opportunity we have in the country at the moment. And this is not to dismiss for 1 nanosecond the importance of improving rural areas for wildlife at the same time as enabling food production, but just to reflect for a few moments on the incredible bargain of the century, you might regard it, that can come from restoring nature where most of us live. 85% of us in this country are in towns and cities, and putting that back nature there can bring huge benefits, including for some creatures that are in long-term decline, but which are potentially quite common still and could be more common than they are at the moment. Things like hedgehogs and song thrushes in decline across the country, but which we can bolster the fortunes of if we take action in urban environments. And indeed, it's interesting to note that the gardens in England, if you add them all together, they cover about twice as much land as all of the national nature reserves put together. So it's a very considerable opportunity you have just in terms of the hectares that could be accommodating better wildlife habitat. And at the same time as we're thinking about that environmental challenge and halting and reversing the decline of species, of course, global heating is a massive issue that's also now very much on the agenda. And we talk a lot about cutting emissions, and that's absolutely vital that we get to net zero as quickly as we can. But at the same time, and even if we succeed with those pathways, we are going to have to make steps towards adaptation. And we've heard some great examples today about how we can build resilience in the face of climate change, including flooding and extreme heat events, through restoring nature in towns and cities, protecting public health and well-being into the bargain. And as we're looking at those kinds of questions, another mega trend in play at the moment, of course, is the stark and worsening inequalities that we see across the country at the moment. And these are not only in relation to economic inequalities, and those are now historically unprecedented, or at least unless you go back to the Victorian era, in terms of the difference between the haves and the have-nots, with many of our fellow citizens excluded not only from the benefits of a decent economic situation, but also unable to enjoy green space. And of course, most of those people live in urban areas. People on low incomes, people of colour are disproportionately unable to access green space. And that's a massive inequality because these places are enjoyable, they're good for people. And that brings us to another heading in terms of value for money that comes from investing in nature in urban areas. And that's, of course, public health. And the huge challenges we now have for our National Health Service arising from rising incidents of depression and anxiety, illnesses linked to inactivity like type 2 diabetes. All of these things can in part be addressed through access to high quality green spaces. And at the same time, we have a level of social isolation, which is really quite paradoxical when you think about how connected we are all now via digital means. But many people suffer from the effects of not seeing many other people. And we know that parks are a place where people naturally talk to each other, they naturally interact. Not only do we help to solve problems of isolation, but also build social cohesion and to be able to enable people to know who their neighbours are. All of these things come from this provision of attractive, accessible green areas in towns and cities. And alongside all of that, and this has been said today as well, if we do not look after the ability of people to enjoy nature, we will not have the mandate in the future to do what's needed to meet these huge environmental challenges. Because no matter how many facts and figures we share with everyone about species decline and global warming, the thing that really makes a difference in about the ways in which people care about these subjects is direct personal experience and an emotional connection with nature that only comes from seeing it yourself. And this, when you blend it all together, adds up to not only a huge environmental opportunity, but also a huge economic opportunity. And you heard the minister this morning quite rightly pointing out that you don't have a sound economy unless you have a sound environment. And if we wish to grow the economy, we're going to have to grow nature into the bargain. And so all of this has been said today in different ways. And I finish up at the end of this conversation very inspired and even more motivated that we do what we can to be able to rebuild nature nationally, not only in those remote rural areas and around our towns and cities, but actually in the towns and cities. And if we're going to do that, we're going to need to invest in partnerships, to find common cause, and to be working together to join up budgets, to be using policies in creative ways to turn the dial from decline to recovery, and to do that even in the heart of our biggest towns and cities. So thank you all for being there today. Thank you for the collaboration and conversations, and thank you for all the partnerships that we enjoy at Natural England on the ground across the country, working with many of you, and we're going to do so much more of it during the years ahead. Thank you all, and I hope you all found it as useful as I did.
Brilliant. Thank you, Tony. That was a masterclass in systems thinking. It's me. I get to round this out. We have just 3 or 4 minutes left. I'm going to tell you some of the things that came up through that poll, the things you're going to do, the actions you're going to take. Think bigger, reimagine seems to be a big one, which is great. The art of the possible, etc., etc. Talk to colleagues and share more. Fabulous. And then one very specific thing, which I think actually a lot of you are feeling, those of you that were in the Citizens Assemblies session, find out more about how Citizens Assemblies work and use them. Right, there's a survey. We all love a survey. There's a survey link in the chat or a QR code. The team, the Nature Towns and Cities team would love it if you filled that out. It helps them to improve, get better if we get feedback. Please do that. We will share recordings over the coming weeks, including that Mete YouTube, I have been told. So those of you that couldn't watch that for technical reasons, that will be shared with you. You can sign up to the Nature Towns and Cities newsletter for more information about future events and announcements. And I think the thing I'm taking away, probably the one line I'm taking away, two actually, environmental justice is social justice. That piece seems so important. The more we can hammer that home with evidence, the better. And also the enabling piece is so important. Know when to get out of the way, know when to open the door. Thank you to everyone. Thank you all for coming and joining in and sticking with this. Mostly thanks to the huge team behind the scenes who don't get to stand on stage like me. They have done an incredible job keeping this platform on its feet and helping all of us out when we've needed help, and managing to put together really this incredible program and keep it running to time. So well done everyone behind the scenes. What a brilliant job. That is us done. Well done everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day.